Yeah, Scotty, we mentioned last week we're going to do our best 22. There's a competition running on the website too for all the fans out there to name their best 22. So let's get yours underway and then we'll pick that apart and we'll do mine.
Starting from the back line. Kelly, Hartley, Ambrose, Gleeson, Hurley, Stanton, Zarakis, Heppel, Goddard, Parrish, Hooker, Langford, Tipper, Danaher, Fantasia, Leuenberger, Watson, Zach Merritt are the followers. And the bench, I've got McGrath, Tom Bell-Chambers, Hocking and Collier.
Who's the toughest to leave out?
Look, Myers was an interesting one, but because of the injury, to be fair, was the one. Matty D had a very good year last year, but I've just looked at it and it seems to be, and I've made this decision basically with Ambrose starting to play that third tall role. And also through the JLT, I just felt clubs, Lloydie, were looking to take the game on at halfback with aggressive kicking, really open it up. So I've really looked at ball, in a sense, Kelly, Gleeson and Stanton as the ball users out of the back half. Pretty much, yeah. And he was very stiff as well. So a small defender. But it seems as teams move more toward, and the Bulldogs are a good example, team defence, there's perhaps less of a reliance or a focus on the small defence. It's still critically important, but teams are prepared to wear that they might not have the perfect matchup for a said player in order to have that creativity out of the back half.
You've gone to ruckman, which is interesting.
Yeah, I have. I've gone, with that in mind, I've just gone, and to our earlier conversation on James Stewart, I've gone with Hooker and Danaher. I don't mind Bell-Chambers, the fact that he can go forward and you might stretch an opposition backline for a period of time in the game.
Is he almost a better forward than ruckman, Tom Bell-Chambers?
I haven't seen enough just yet to say that. Yeah, I think that he needs to be, 80% ruck, I would have thought. I'm not sure I'd be picking him as a forward ahead of... I'd probably have James Stewart and the team ahead of him.
Yeah, if it's purely forward. Yeah. And also, with the two rucks, neither fill me with enormous faith that they'll get through the full games in, week out. So you need a little bit of coverage. What about you, Jules?
No, we've only actually got one change. Okay. I had Bagley in and not Bell-Chambers. So I had Bagley, Hartley, Ambrose, Gleeson, Hurley, Kelly, Zarakis, Heppel, Collier, Watson, Hooker, Langford, Tipwoody, Danaher, Fantasia, Leuenberger, Zach Merritt, Parrish, Stanton, McGrath, Goddard and Hocking. I must admit, this time last week I was going to put Tipwoody at halfback. Yeah, I just think with the modern game, as you say, pulling the trigger, good skills, but he looks pretty special as a forward.
Yeah, he does. Great goal sense and really hard to defend, and then also his pressure coming out. So there's that, also the tackles he lays, but the inferred pressure that they know he's around. And it's also important with our teams, Jules. I mean, it's also based on what the coach has done. I thought Matty D would have been a player, but when the coach hasn't gone with him the last couple of practice games, I've factored that into my team. I think he's also keen to see some young players like a Gleeson, who I think it's really important that he takes the next step in his footy. I think he can, but also needs to.
The one question I have for you both, you've got Goddard on the bench and you've got him on the wing, and where his best spot is, because I think the club's got to be very careful not having him roam around, because we saw in the second half on the weekend, he's back behind the ball and you become irrelevant when you're getting smashed in the midfield like that. So, I think Goddard needs a role to play, and it's not that role anymore. So can he in his own right play on a man at half-back at times? Can he play forward and kick a few goals like we saw him at St Kilda at his best? Not that roaming role.
I think you're spot on. Yeah. If a position has to be created for him to remain in the team, then that won't help the team. You're spot on. He has to be able to hold the wing with his height and work up and down and cover the defence to help out or push forward with his kicking. Jules has got him on the bench. I was toing and froing there, but I went with the coach. The coach has played him on the wing to start with, but I think he needs to start the season well.
Coming through on the Twitter feed a bit last week, a bit of criticism about that Goddard in that second half just went behind the ball. Not his fault. He was told to go behind the ball, and instead of getting some extra numbers up at the stoppages. What do you make of that?
I just think that it's a timing thing. I just love the players who, when the ball's coming in the air, they're releasing themselves off their man. So there might be a half forward who pushes up too high, Corey Enright's a prime example of just someone who played it so smartly. But, yeah, just that player who knows the balance between defence and when to attack. I saw Brendan against Collingwood. I thought he played the role well. He was kicking the ball inside 50 and it was really damaging.
That's what you want, don't you?
That's right. So it's it's just because teams are too smart now to... Yeah, they
go around the spare, don't they?
Yeah.
They'll just go around, or they'll link up with hands because they've got an extra number through the middle of the ground, just kick it over their head.
Lloyd, Scotty, you want to ask Lloydie about the captaincy?
It was important when we had Lloydie here, and I wanted to ask about Joe Danaher because of the time you spent with him, but also I think there's a great similarities between Heppel taking over from Job and you taking over from Hurdy. How you found that, the challenges that may come in addition to the fact that you're captain, and how you think Hepp will go with it, having spent some time with him as well.
Yeah, it was. I remember at the end of my first year was 06 as captain, and I remember they came to me to say at the start of 05, we want you to be captain, and it came as a huge shock because we'd heard he was such a dominant force within the team, and I said, can you give me 12 more months? And so can you do it for one more year? And I spent that year. I often, if I wasn't playing well, I was off in a toilet cubicle at halftime thinking, how can I get myself going here? I wasn't thinking about the team at all. So I spent the next 12 months changing that mindset. So in terms of having James still around, like Job's still around, James didn't spend, remember he had till January off. So November, December, I was able to sort of put my own stamp on things, and he very much took a backward step. So he was very helpful in that regard of knowing just to let me put my stamp on things. We're very different in the way we did things, but he was very respectful of that. Job's so vocal. I still see on the training track, he's probably the loudest out there. So it's great that he hasn't just thought, okay, it's over to other people now. But Hep's still getting the team in together. So I think he's got a great respect, and Job's a very intelligent person to know. When it's Hep's time and when it's time for me to step in and assist him. So I think it's a great transition. I think I was hoping it would happen. I think Job, everything he's been through, just go and play your footy, and it's time to hand over to someone else. Yeah,
any advice for Hep on what you know, having spent time as captain?
I sent him a text message, and the best advice I said was, which Adam Simpson gave to me. Yeah. Which was, you've been given this position because of all you've achieved up until now. So you don't go trying to change and be something you're not, because you've been given the captain for what you've done up to this point. The best form of leadership is the way you play. So there's no point saying the best things of all time if you're not getting a kick yourself. So don't let your captaincy take away from your performance. So the best part of obviously you've got to address the team and you've got to do things during the week. I love game day because and when the quarter started, because I thought now it's time for me to play and perform like anyone else, like I always have tried to, because that's how I'm going to inspire my team the most. So that was just a couple of little things that I spoke to him about. Yeah, we
had some good Twitter feedback this week. So at Essendon FC, hashtag Friday Footy Panel. Thanks to all the fans for getting involved. There was a question about Dyson Heppel from Jimmy McCallum, who's asked, is Dyson a damaging enough player with the footy in hand to be a genuine A-grader? What's your thoughts on that?
There's a few damaging kicks he kicked into the inside 50 on the weekend. One to James, straight down James Stewart. I don't think he started... I think he started this JLT like a player who hasn't played for 12 months, where I don't think he's had the ping that I've seen in the past. But round one hasn't started yet, so
perhaps the tempo, isn't it? Just getting used to the tempo of the games. Yeah.
How do you rate him as a field kick? I think a few people out have had a knock on him for his kicking.
He's not. I think he's a very good kick. He places the ball well and he spots up targets. He's got excellent vision. I don't think he's a penetrating kick or a spearing kick. I think he's best. He's an accumulator of the ball. His work is in and around the stoppage. I think he's more than adequate in that level, and he's been a fantastic player and will continue to be.
Now, just a bit of a different one. If you were buying stock in an Essendon player this year, pretend it's the share market, who would you be loading up on?
Joe Danaher.
You're big on Joe. You're key forwards.
Key forwards, as you said. If you look at it, and we all have opinions in football, but if you talk about who the top 25 of players of the last 25 years, who dominates that top half of the list? The key forwards. I mean, And it is because they're rarity. If you have 2 good ones in your team, you're not far off a premiership chance. You need 10 or 12 midfielders, and they can become available. Not to denigrate the mids, they're critically important, but they are your cream. And I think the way he's tracking after last year's efforts, I thought, in a team that time in possession was significantly down, inside 50s were down, that if he can get some decent supply, his stocks can rise very quickly.
Lloydie, for you?
Yeah, I think Ratio Fantasia. So I think that to do what he did last year again, in a 30 goals in a side that won 3 games. I think that whether he becomes a permanent forward player or can he be an elite outside midfielder. I think just with that pace, like Tip and Woody, like Fantasia could be a great player off half-back. He could be great in the forward line. Hopefully he can become a great winger outside mid. So I think it's great to see he signed during the week as well.
My blue chip stock is Zach Merritt.
Yes.
Rock solid.
Yep.
Yeah, he'll just continue to go.
What about Tip and Woody? I mean, both of you play with Michael Long and you play with Dean Rioli and you play with Andy Lovett, who all had special qualities. How good can Tip and Woody be?
Oh, incredibly good. I think he's untapped in the sense, if you look at, he's only done the 2 pre-seasons, and he doesn't have a huge history of coming through the pathways and so forth. And he's got so much to learn, but he's learning very, very quickly.
Well, he only needs 10 possessions. He's one of those players. I think Daniel Kerr was one of those guys who didn't get the 30 that a Cousins might have got, or another player. You see players accumulate huge numbers these days, whereas Tipper only needs 10. Like Rioli's when he first came in, he's work off the ball. Obviously, you'd like him to get 15 possessions, probably average this year, but up from maybe 10 or 12. But yeah, what he does is sensational.
And I think with Cyril's performances that we've come to, he's almost educated us, I think, Cyril, on appreciating 10 and 12 and 14 possession games, whereas I think historically you either had to kick a bag full of goals or get 30. Now we see the value, the true value and importance to teams for those players. And now with someone like Tipper, we start to go, okay, well, there's far much more to it than just possessions and that. It's what else do you do, the deft taps and the creativity that's provided that helps others, and we're seeing that with Tipper.
A couple of fun ones for you, Lloydie, off Twitter. Who is your worst teammate to room with? This could be awkward. This could be really awkward.
So Scotty changed the whole rooming.
Was that Lisa Lloyd?
No, it wasn't Lisa.
Yeah, I saw that one on Twitter. Scotty changed the whole way it worked. Obviously the
Trailblazer, Jules.
Clubs love to cut costs. And with interstate trips, and we all would share.
Do you remember the game?
Yeah, it was 3-man,
Freo
3-0
97.
in Perth, and Scotty's renowned for his chainsaw snoring. It was just out of control. I used to ask his wife Georgina, "How do you cope with this?" And she says, "I actually sleep with blue tack in my ears."
Yeah, she does. Even this morning, she got up bleary-eyed, and I said, "How are you, darling?" She said, she grumbled and groaned at me and said, "Not good. You snored. You must have been tired."
So it was 1997. Jules and Scotty and I were both in our 3rd seasons, and we were playing the Fremantle Dockers. I'm not sure if they were travelling that well at the time, but
gee, they hammered us.
And so I reckon I had 1 hour sleep, in terms of just
it was a good hour though.
The snoring was so. Being the type of person I was, pretty intense about footy, and I psyched myself out. How can I play a decent game of footy today? We lost by 97 points. I think I had about 3 or 4 possessions. And I went straight to the offices of, I think, Danny Corker and said, "I cannot room with anyone again. I need my own room." And then I think it came in after that if you want the choice of your own room, you can have it. If you want a room, I never roomed with anyone ever again. Did you have your own room too? Yeah.
Forever.
And it got that
Well,
bad.
I was always going to have my own room after that. They might have tried to pair you up with someone that didn't snore, but no one was coming near me.
An extension to that is later that year, first footy trip I was ever going to go on, and it was to South Africa. And I thought to myself, well, it's a footy trip. We'll have drank that much, and we'll be tired. I'll get a good night's sleep even with Scotty there. Well, after the first night, I said to Blake Carousel, "Can you just leave your door ajar? Because I just can't handle sleeping with him on a footy trip." So I used to sleep on the couch of Carousel's room in South Africa.
And I got some weird roommates on footy trips, because that was one time you did have to share, but I feel sorry for those guys.
Oh, God. Now, another one here, Lloydie. Who'd you like leading to better, Dean Rioli or James Hurt?
Both very different. They're hard to split. I'd say Rioli was the purest, silkiest kick. But one thing that Hurd would do is just while the camera's on, like the defender, say for example, would be a Luke McFarlane, his speed used to really worry me because he was lightning quick. Yeah. But he'd be facing me, so he couldn't see what was going on downfield, and Hurd would just be pointing, and he'd just put the ball into space before I'd actually even led. So there was only probably 2 or 3 blokes in a team that you had to do the work for the kicker in terms of getting out. Where there was Scotty would, same thing. He'd just roll, put it out in front. Hurd would do the same, and then Rioli, it was just had eyes in the back of his head. He just knew.
And he would weight the kick perfectly. Yeah.
And Long was the other one that would weight the kick perfectly.
Because it was one of Sheeds' biggest things early on. We don't need to see you spear the kick. Just weight it to make it easy for the guy marking it. And those guys knew it better than most how to do it.
So if Scotty got it 70 out, did you bother leading? Or there was no point?
I was going to say, actually, I'm going to butt in here. No one. How good was he? He'd get the ball about 40 out on the boundary line and he'd go back and he'd sort of rock. He'd pretend to pass it off 3 or 4 times.
Like any good full
I didn't
forward.
lead. I just stood there and said, Lloyd, don't even... See, I wouldn't even bother doing that. I just turned my back.
You know who taught me that one? Darren Buick very early on.
Very good like that. Very good. Now, to finish off, Lloyd, let's get you... What's your expectations for the Bombers this year?
I think it's going to be a great year for the Bombers. I think that what we have seen, although it hasn't been in a win just yet in the JLT series, that just the excitement that the guys play with. There's just stars on every line. I think that just the game plan that Essendon play with is pretty attacking through the corridor, play on a lot. It's just then what we touch on, then when Essendon haven't got the ball, how they defend. But I'd expect around 13 to 14 wins. So
top 8.
Around that 8 to 10 mark. So it's just whether you can beat St Kilda's and Melbourne's at crucial times, who will be vying for that same position.
So should top 8 be the pass mark this year, or would that be a bonus given where the team is coming from?
I don't know if it's... I think they should be aiming to play finals anytime you go in. I often touch on when we first got to Essendon. I know the comps got tougher with more teams, but you expected to play in a preliminary final when we first got there, and I think their standards were very, very high, and they've just gradually fallen as time goes on. So finals should be the aim, but I think if you had a St Kilda 9th like last year where your form's great, you finish well and you finish 9th, you'd still be a fair pass, mate.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think there's 9ths and there's 9ths, and it depends on the context of the season, doesn't it? And if you lose a couple of close ones and just fall out, but you're on the build, and it depends on, in many ways, who emerges. If some of your younger players start to take over this team and you see that scope and you're 9th or 10th, so be it. I think there's a real chance that that could happen because the season is just so even. I think it will be so even this year.
Give us your Premier, Lloydie, maybe a team on the rise, a team on the slide, and maybe a Brownlow medalist as well.
I went the Giants, as Premier, which most people would. They've got to learn how to be the hunted, though, so I don't think it's a lay-down misère like all these people say, you just give it to them. I don't think that's the case at all. Melbourne's the team I've got in the... it was before the JLT series. I made a few phone calls to some opposition coaches that I know around the traps, and they said Melbourne are training the house down, and they were so impressed. So I actually put them in at 6 before, just based on how people are judging the way they're training. Was that the two? Premier?
Yeah, maybe. Which team's going to slide a bit, do you think? I mean, everyone's saying North.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn finish around the 7 or 8 mark. So down on what they've been in previous years. Yep. And Geelong are the other one that, it wouldn't surprise me if they dropped down to around 7 or 8 as well.
Yeah, that'd be a shame if Hawthorn missed the 8, wouldn't it? Yeah. That'd be really disappointing.
What about you, Scotty?
I think Giants are hard to go past, but I'm like you. Teams will be chipping away at them all year, and you can have a bad day. Slider, I think the Hawks, there's just a couple of signs with them, and I know it's JLT, but just even last year they had some close wins, which can sort of inflate your position on the ladder. Geelong, I think, are an injury away. I believe that. North, I think, naturally are the ones with who's gone out of the team and that, and the evenness of the competition, and the way that they finished the second half of last year. They really struggled. Biggest improver, Melbourne or St Kilda. I think Melbourne are probably, coming from further back on the ladder, and I think they'll finish somewhere around the Saints. I'll say Melbourne. Yeah.
And Coleman medal tip, giving you both star forwards.
I love Franklin. He's still my favourite player in the comp, but the man at the Gold Coast.
Tommy Lynch.
I'll go.
They'll have a better year.
They'll improve.
Yeah, I think Tom Lynch is a real chance. Yep.
Well, Lloydie, thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks for your time and some good old stories from the past. And now starting with the Herald Sun, I believe. Who's in your sights first up?
Carlton's in my sights on Saturday.
Oh, that's a shame.
In the crosshairs.
In the crosshairs,
yes.
Look out. Scotty, thanks for your time once again. We'll see you next week as a big preview to the Hawthorn game. Remember, Bomber fans, there'll be plenty of updates tonight from Geelong as well, the VFL game, with so many important players coming back. Of course, get involved at Twitter at Essendon FC, #Friday Footy Panel, and we'll see you next week.